On today's show, the LA Clippers had their media day, and there was something that stuck out about every single new addition. And I'm going to be talking about that and more on today's Locked On Clippers.
You are Locked On Clippers, your daily Los Angeles Clippers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, sir. You were locking in with the Clips. Thank you for making Locked On Clippers the first listen of your day, your team every day. I'm your host, Darian Vaziri, born and raised in LA, been a Clipper fan for 20 years, been covering the team on my own YouTube channel, Dime Dropper for 5, and right here on the Locked On Podcast Network for 3. Your team every day. Make sure you subscribe and hit the notification bell so you can help us get to 8,000 subscribers before the season begins. In today's episode, of course, you can follow wherever you get your podcasts. In today's episode, we're going to be talking more about Media Day, my second of 3 Media Day related episodes. The last one I was talking about the response to the aspiration questions, which was obviously going to be the talk of the town. And then, of course, now I'm going to be speaking about the new addition, something that I felt was a common theme between the 3 of them that spoke. So that does not include Brook Lopez. We're going to be talking about Bradley Beal, John Collins, and Chris Paul. I'm also going to be talking about the comments made by their teammates about them. And, of course, analyzing what they all bring to the table. So to begin, the main theme that I had from every single person that talked, and it's becoming a theme in general for people that have come to this organization, they're happy to be here. They enjoy being here, and they want to be here. And that's just something that for us as Clipper fans, like some might say, dude, it's because of LA. It's not about the Clippers. Like, if that were the case, then we wouldn't be such a historically bad franchise because, yes, of course, the Lakers have always existed, but we were just a franchise that was known for losing, for not treating its players well, for having an owner that made players feel uncomfortable and did not pay them. The exact opposite of kind of what we're being accused of now is being too friendly to a player. So we've really turned the corner in that regard that, and I know people are going to make jokes and say, yeah, why wouldn't people want to come in there having illegal benefits? Even if it is true that we're guilty, that's one player. Reggie Jackson was not getting that, and we turned his career around and had him become such an emotional connection, to have an emotional connection to this fan base. And I feel like if you ask Reggie Jackson, I don't know this for sure, but I feel like if you ask Reggie Jackson what his favorite part of his career was, I think he would say the Clippers. Ever since Lob City, or really the Ballmer era, I think when people have been having a good time on the Clippers, we're on a winning team, and we've been really a winning team every year since Steve Ballmer. I always say this, just to use an example before I tie it back to the Clippers. I always say in basketball, if you're playing for the Lakers, Celtics, or Knicks, and you're playing well in your role, you're not going to want to leave. Like, it's a very rare instance where you want to leave if you're doing well and you have the love of the fans, because it's like with the Knicks, Lakers, and Celtics, you're going to sell out every night, and you're playing with historic cities behind you, like landmark cities behind you with a large population and a big market where you're going to get a ton of attention to your name. You're probably going to get more sponsorship, more branding, just more attention. And when you're winning and you're doing well, it's positive attention. So like I always say, when someone's balling out with the Knicks, they don't want to leave. And that's the truth. Like, I can't think of one person that when the Knicks, they're doing well, they want to leave New York. It's not something that they want. And with the Lakers, people don't want to leave the Lakers. Like, Shaq didn't want to leave. They just had to make a choice. At that point, Kobe and Shaq were so, it's a whole thing. We already know about the Kobe and Shaq. But people don't really want to leave the Celtics. Kyrie Irving left because things weren't going well. And when it comes to his team choices, he was going through an interesting phase at that point. But he didn't play well, so things were not going well. Let's say they're getting paid and they're winning. They don't want to leave those places. And you can say that about other places, but you don't, because there's certain, like Kawhi Leonard was getting paid and he was winning in Toronto, but he didn't want to stay there. So a lot of it does come down to these big markets, in these big cities across the world, and having that kind of money and that history for some of these teams, When you're in Green Bay and you're balling, you're very well supported. You see Aaron Rodgers, he was basically there his entire career. Brett Favre, he had a large stint there. So people speak highly of certain organizations, and I'm not saying the Clippers are on the level of these other teams, but we're becoming a franchise where when guys are playing well, they don't want to leave. CP3, Blake Griffin never wanted to leave. DeAndre Jordan, he left because we went a different direction. He was here for a minute. CP3 re-signed, and then he really wanted to win a championship and was unhappy with the situation. So you can say, he was balling. He's a rare instance that he left. But look, he wanted to win a championship. And the facts were that we weren't good enough at that point. People had gotten turned off by the Glenn Rivers being president of basketball operations in addition to being our head coach and paying his son, which Matt Barnes has talked about on various podcasts. But you see guys like, for example, like Lou Williams, right? He didn't want to get traded to Atlanta. Like, even though, I'm pretty sure Lou Williams is from Atlanta. Let me just double check that. He was born in Tennessee, but he went to high school in Georgia. Yes, South Gwinnett. So yeah, he's from Atlanta or from Georgia. He wanted to stay with the Clippers. Like, he wanted to play for the Clippers. Montrezl Harrell didn't get paid, and we didn't bring him back. But I think he wanted to stay at Clipper. He loved being here. Patrick Beverley didn't want to get traded. You saw how emotional he was when he beat us with Minnesota. People want to be here. Look at Kawhi. Paul George. Okay, so then people are going to say Paul George. Paul George wanted to be here, but money talks. I think that, again, it's the payment situation that these guys will leave these places, but they deep down don't want to leave these places. In terms of if they're succeeding, Paul George was borderline not succeeding, though, in his role. So maybe he contradicts that anyway. Or goes against my point anyway. Or backs me up on my point, I should say. Jesus. So, yeah, I don't know. What do you guys think of that premise in the comments? There are certain teams in sports that when you're balling for them and you're getting paid what you deserve or what you feel you deserve, you don't want to leave. And the Clippers are kind of becoming one of those teams where people are satisfied being here and they love talking about their tenure here. Like, you think SGA wanted to be traded to Oklahoma? Please. He ended up being successful because Sam Presti's great and that is a good organization over there with some awesome players, and he's amazing. But you don't want to leave LA. Like, now, when you have LA backed up by a good organization, like in terms of, the structure of it all and being good to the players, you don't want to leave. This is a great city, man. Everybody wants to come here for a reason. I sound braggadocious or whatever, but hey, man, I am. This is LA versus the world, son. What are you talking about? Like, what are you talking about, dude? Like, I support every LA team in every sport. People always, you're a Clipper fan. It's not a real LA team. It's like, dude, we've been here since 1984. Like, please. But anyway, that's the whole point. People need to shift their and by the way, people are saying, if people are asking, what proof do you have of this? Let's just read some quotes. Bradley Beal, a player who's, I don't know if he's gonna be in the Hall of Fame, but he's gonna get his number retired for organization, the Washington Wizards, and he's had a very good career. He said, "I love being here. I'm usually here every offseason working out anyway, so it wasn't too big of an adjustment for me. My wife is from here. This is where basketball is going to be best for me. I hope I can finish here." Strong words from a guy who just got here and spent 11 years in one organization. He said, I love being here. And he says he's usually here in the offseason working out. He's not one of the only players that always is here working out. So again, the point is, okay, we get it, bro. Players want to come to LA. Not quite. Because in what world 20 years ago did people like Kawhi Leonard in the middle of their prime choose to come to the Clippers? Again, people are going to make circumvention jokes. At the end of the day, it's still the Clippers. These people wanted to come. Like Jamal Crawford. Listen to how he talks about the Clippers. And funny enough, just to back up my point, who were his two favorite stops? Knicks and Clippers. I think it's the Chicago Bulls, too, you could argue is one of them as well. They just got that historic allure, and Chicago's a great city. And to some degree, Miami. Obviously, contractually, things happen with Dwayne Wade and Jimmy Butler, but people have clearly liked playing there, and they want to be Heat for life and all that. It's these big cities, man. When they have good organizations behind them, people want to be there. It's that simple because you're getting attention, right? And John Collins spoke about that, too. So, by the way, cool to hear that Beal's wife is from L.A. To say that he wants to finish it. Like, look, dude, and this is another thing. Besides analyzing the quotes, it's their body language of all three guys. Beal seemed so happy to be here, and I'm just really excited to see that as a fan. Like, damn, Bradley Beal is hyped to be a Clipper. Like, you got to understand. Like, I know I haven't even had it as bad as other fans, but like, there was some dark years, dude. There was some dark years, and we had to hear a lot of jokes, especially if you're a local fan in Southern California with all these Laker fans. Like, the Clippers, no, they're a joke. Like, nobody wants to be on the Clippers. Like, they suck. And we have these like Westbrook and Harden and Kawhi and Paul George and Chris Paul and Blake and even all the washed ones like Boogie Cousins and John Wall and Rondo. These guys have all, Paul Pierce even, have suited up for the Clippers. Some of those guys I named, their tenure wasn't great, but like, my goodness, like these are big names suited up for the Clippers. Joakim Noah for a short time. And now we got Bradley Beal excited to be a Clipper, and he can still contribute. That's the best part we're going to be talking about next. But John Collins is the one I'm going to end it with because we know Chris Paul's hyped to be here. Like, he's back with his family. I mean, he's home. He's from North Carolina, but he built, a family here. I think if he had it his way and he felt like the Clippers were constantly competing, he would have wanted to stay for the rest of his career. But anyway, here's what John Collins said. He said, extremely excited about the platform of just being in LA, the eyes, the fans, and just the attention. And I feel like, as a player, I always feel like I get under or overlooked, or however you call it, whether it be the chip on my shoulder, whether it be being real or not, it's motivation for me. And I definitely approach the energy, appreciate the energy from the city. Since I've been here, obviously I dunk a lot, and Blake dunked a lot too. So I've just felt that good positive energy. The crowd wants to be entertained. They want to see people dunk, of course. And I'm hoping I can bring that to the fans in the best way. And I also know I got two great playmakers who are going to make that happen a little bit easier. So I am, again, can't say it enough. I'm just extremely excited to see, or extremely excited to know that I can play a certain style of basketball that allows me to truly, in the best way, not think and sort of just flow and let the playmaking abilities of, again, CP, KD, who I've also Chris Dunn also played with before, and just let the PGs do their thing and allow the game to flow. So John Collins, safe to say he is excited to be here as well and talked about a lot of things I talked about. So people like being a Clipper nowadays. And coming up, I'm going to talk about the new blood of this Clipper team and what they can bring to the court. I got to tell you a little something about Peloton. Peloton is shaping the future of fitness with the brand new Peloton Cross Training Tread Plus, powered by Peloton IQ. It's their most advanced equipment yet. Designed to give you real-time guidance and endless ways to move, whether you're running, lifting, or cross-training with your favorite instructors. This is training reimagined. Peloton is built for breakthroughs with tools that help you plan, stay motivated, and reach peak performance. I love how the Peloton IQ system offers real-time strength coaching. It actually tracks your reps, suggests the right weights, and corrects your form, making every rep smarter and safer. So let yourself run, lift, flex, and push forward. Explore the new Peloton Cross Training Tread Plus today at onepeloton.com. All right, ladies and gentlemen, talking about the newest Clippers and talk about some big names, people. Oh my God. Yeah. See, people are always going to clown and say, big names don't mean anything. You're right in terms of winning, but man, as a Clipper fan, as I say, and I'm sorry if I get annoying with this kind of stuff, but I still just think for the diehards, we need to keep it in perspective. The fact that we're getting these A-list players, or like even A-list names, I should say, because right now they're not A-list players, some of them, to want to be Clippers, and it's not just the Lakers anymore. Like, that's an amazing feeling, and it gives competition for them when it comes to free agents. And I'm gonna be honest, it feels like we get everybody these days. It really feels like that. And I've saying that about the Clippers. So talking about who we got, Bradley Beal, John Wall, Bradley Beal, Marcin Gortat. We've had and Paul Pierce. We've had 4 of the 5 starters, with Nene being the only one we haven't from that 2014 Wizards team. But Bradley Beal is going to be a Clipper, and hopefully he can do better than John Wall and Marcin Gortat. And, I think with Brad, he seems to have a really good energy about him right now. I love the way he came across in that press conference, that, kind of a focused energy, that he's just excited to be here in LA. He's excited to play for a bigger market. DC Suns, they don't really get the same attention that the Clippers get when we're good. And it's just going to be awesome to see what he can bring to the table. From my eye test and being someone who I'm pretty sure I've never missed a playoff game of Bradley Beal's career. I've watched every single one almost. His first one was just off the top of my head, no notes in front of me, the game one against the Bulls in 2014. And I remember after game two, I was on Facebook back then, not on Twitter. And I said I remember writing this Facebook post. I said the NBA playoffs are so great because for people that don't have League Pass, you can finally watch a guy consistently and understand how good someone like Bradley Beal is. And I tweeted that after his game two against the Bulls. But I love those Wizards teams. I love John Wall, and I like Beal too. And I think back then, he just seemed more hungry with his defensive intensity and his energy. And I think back then he was a good defender. But I think since John Wall kind of started getting injuries and Beal became this 30-point per game scorer, I think his defensive energy and intensity tailed off a lot, which you could say comes naturally given that you're not guarding the best or guarding good players anymore as frequently because you have to do so much on offense. But it became like when I watched almost every game of the 2021 season for the Wizards, like half the season because of Westbrook, he just did not fight over screens. He didn't talk. It was just someone that was not interested in playing defense. It clearly looked like that. And, he got the big payday. He's getting buckets. You got to really want it at that point. And I feel as though his energy level or intensity level or his effort level, I should say, in Phoenix on defense went up that first season. But they just had him as their second best point of attack guy with Grayson Allen next to him. And that's not ideal. Or even sometimes guarding the best player. And that's not the role you want for him. But that's the role that he's going to be playing actually to start games. But apparently, and I'm going to do another episode on this, apparently Ty Lue is deciding between John Collins or maybe a point of attack defender in that starting five. Apparently he's not married to John Collins. And I thought because of how much he's getting paid, about $26 million, he was going to be a guaranteed starter. But it seems like Bradley Beal, just given who he is and, how good Ty Lue still thinks he is. And I'm not saying Ty Lue's delusional in any sense. Yeah, $26,580,000 is John Collins, is what he's getting paid this year. But Bradley Beal is still a name. It's not easy to just say, because that was part of the deal when Bradley Beal signed was that he was going to start. Apparently not the same with John Collins, who was traded. But by the way, speaking of John Collins, I loved his enthusiasm. I didn't realize he was such a lively person. I didn't realize he was that talkative with media, but maybe it was just his first day. I'm excited to get to know a little bit about John Collins, the person, as much as you can through the lens of having him on the squad. And I loved his energy. And I've always been a fan. I probably thought he could be an all-star at one point, and I was like, he's got the tools. He has moments where he's good in the post. He has really solid, in terms of his mechanics when he turns in faces, it looks good, but he just never had the intensity to me of a leading scorer kind of guy on a good team. And he's not as big as I thought. He probably can't bully guys as much as I first expected him to be able to. But, I saw in Utah, he's not a star. He can average good numbers on a bad team, and he can average solid numbers on a good team. But he's going to be a role player, and he's going to be a very good role player, hopefully. And this might be the Aaron Gordon to Denver, the Andrew Wiggins to Golden State moment for us. And they asked him about I forget who it was that asked him. Maybe it was Farbad. I think it was Farbad said, or asked him, do you ever see, because people had talked about, it was either Farbad or Tomer, sorry to you guys, whichever one I'm saying is wrong, but asked him about, how you feel. It's been a rumor on social media about, or Clipper fans have been trying to, get you or they've mentioned your name a lot and potential, guys the Clippers could get. And John Collins said that, yeah, it's hard to ignore. You try to ignore all that noise, but you do sometimes think about what it could be and think that you could be a perfect fit for that team and exactly what they're missing. So that was something that was really good to see. But coming up, going to be talking about the direct quotes from various Clippers at Media Day and what they mean. Coming up. I got to tell you a little something about FanDuel. The NFL season is here, and FanDuel has an offer you don't want to miss. Right now, new customers can bet just $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you win. That's right. Pick a bet, put down $5, and if it hits, you'll unlock $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. It makes watching football even more exciting when you've got a little something riding in on the action. And coming up, we've got Minnesota Vikings and Cleveland Browns, Houston Texans at Baltimore Ravens, New York Giants at the Saints, Dolphins Panthers, Raiders Colts, Broncos Eagles, Cowboys Jets, Titans Cardinals, Bucks Seahawks, Commanders Chargers at SoFi Stadium. So where do you go to bet on that stuff? FanDuel. You can also bet on other sports as well, not just football. So what are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com to download the FanDuel app today and get started. All right, Clipper Nation, going to be talking now about the direct quotes from our guys. And first, starting with Bradley Beal, and going off of what I said about his energy and how positive he seems to be, he said, it's about what is beneficial for the team. And, whatever job they need me to go do, I'm going to go out there and execute. Let's see. Obviously, players always say that in the beginning, and when they get upset about something, it changes their demeanor. But I just love the energy that Bradley Beal is coming with. I see how happy he is to be here. I see how focused he seems to be as well. And I'm looking forward to seeing his playmaking in the pick and roll. And talking about Bradley Beal, Ty Lue said, adding a guy like Brad is easy for our team. You have a guy who can run pick and rolls. He can catch and shoot. He's a great cutter, can handle the basketball. Does a lot of different things offensively. His biggest ability for us is being able to pass the ball and make plays for Zoo and guys like that when he comes off pick and roll. So let's just analyze that quote real quick, right? Clearly, where it seems that Ty is most excited about Brad is his ability to have another pick and roll ball handler out there. Because that's what Brad can do that Norman Powell couldn't really do. Because Norman Powell, he really can only go right. And when he goes right, he does a great job of turning the corner and trying to get downhill. But when he gets downhill, he gets himself into situations where he never will stop and turn and pivot or just play off 2 feet. He kind of just runs in there, tries to go for that right-handed layup. And if it's not there, he does that little jump pass scoop underneath or to the corner that sometimes works. But jump passing is never ideal. For those that don't know, fundamentally, jump passing is discouraged especially when you're young. Of course, NBA players can get away with it sometimes, especially someone like Tyrese Halliburton or LeBron James. But even James Harden doesn't really jump pass that much. He's usually on his feet when he passes because if you decide against that pass in the air, you're either shooting, you're getting a travel, or you're throwing the ball away recklessly. So, that's why it's discouraged. But Bradley Beal is just another guy that can create and pick and roll, and we only had really James Harden doing that at a high level last year. Kawhi Leonard, not the best pick and roll ball handler because he doesn't have the best vision, and a lot of times teams will go under that screen just because Kawhi doesn't he doesn't have the quickest release. He doesn't really get blocked, but they seem to do a good job contesting it even when teams go under, and he doesn't turn the corner that quickly. And the thing is, though, he can still produce. If you probably looked at his PPP, points per possession on pick and rolls, he probably, I'd have to check it, but he gets a good shot. He still scores and sometimes can get to that mid-range. And, even though it becomes still an isolation situation, we haven't created a distinct advantage, he still can ISO into a bucket so easily. But yeah, it seems like Ty Lue is very excited about Bradley Beal as a ball handler. And what he can do. And yeah, he can do all those things. Catch and shoot, which is going to be great next to James Harden and Chris Paul. Great cutter. I mean, I remember him being a solid cutter, but we'll see. Now that I get to watch him every night, we'll see about that. We don't really have great cutters on this team. I can't lie. Can definitely handle the basketball and definitely does a lot of different things offensively. But yeah, make plays for guys like Zoo and stuff off the pick and roll. That tells you, And by the way, Ty Lue on our new additions. Just to, actually, before I go to the Ty Lue new additions, Kawhi said with Beal, everybody knows who he is. A 3-level scorer, could also pass the basketball. He's going to help out a lot by being a ball handler, another decision maker on the floor. spreading the defense out. So that was what Kawhi said about Beal. And he is a 3-level scorer. I mean, there's all facts. Obviously, what else he's going to say? But there's all facts. Going to help out a lot being a ball. Another mention, though, about being a ball handler, another decision maker on the floor. So clearly, Bradley Beal, expect him to be, handling the rock a good amount. Then you had what Ty Lue said overall about Bradley Beal or our additions as a whole. But before I go to that, Chris Paul, he also kept mentioning Bradley Beal and him have always known each other through like AAU stuff, and he's known him since he was in high school, and he's excited to play with him. So I didn't know that Chris Paul and Brad had that existing relationship. And then Ty said, Lawrence and Mark and Trent, they did a good job of just, addressing some needs that we needed. CP, a point guard that can make plays and can make guys better. Lopez, who's a three-point shooter, but also a great rim protector. And I think John Collins with athleticism, the way he's able to, run the floor, finish at the rim, the big body that can rebound. And then, picking up Bradley, who I think is a really good scorer and can score at all 3 levels. And we just got to challenge him like we've been doing all summer, just to getting back to being an elite defender that he's been in the past. Our pickups have been great. So that's what Bradley Beal is being, or how he's being talked about by Ty Lue. First of all, I can't lie. I don't think he's ever been an elite defender. So I think Ty Lue is just kind of, exaggerating on that one. But they're clearly putting a lot. I mean, see, that's the thing. That's definitely what Ty's wrestling with right now. Does he want to start John Collins, or does he want to start a point of attack guy and have Beal guard the second best point of attack guy? So that's something that we'll have to, wait and see. But another mention of being able to score at 3 levels, and that's what Brad can do. Norman Powell was not really a frequent mid-range shooter. It was more layups and threes with him and some floaters. Brad will give us a little bit of everything, although the con, I think, is Norm got to the paint way more. I think he was still faster, more explosive, and he's a great finisher. Brad doesn't really get the step as much anymore, but he definitely can create space for shots. He's got that great step back jumper going left, and he just off the dribble shooting is just so much better than Norm, in my opinion. And he can really go left, like stop on a dime. So excited about that, and excited about, everything Ty Lue said. He mentioned, basically everyone just mentioned the characteristics of these different guys. And look, Chris Paul's going to be perfect for us off the bench with James Harden out. That's the perfect reason to get Chris Paul, is you can still have a guy that can go out there and create great shots for you every time down the floor in pick and roll. And especially now, he has Brook Lopez as a pick and pop big. We haven't had a pick and pop big since Serge Ibaka, who was, not really a Clipper. He was injured immediately. So we didn't really get to reap the benefits of having Serge Ibaka. So, the last pick and pop big is, JaMychal Green. Is that how far we're going to go back? Because I can't think of anybody else. We had Zoo and Montrezl Harrell. Isaiah Hartenstein, these aren't pick and pop bigs. Moses Brown. Daniel Tice, not really. Brook Lopez can really stretch the floor. And that's going to give James Harden and Chris Paul a different element when teams play drop coverage against them. Ty Lue also talked about Brook Lopez, saying versatile big that can guard multiple positions. Oh, no, that was about John Collins. Is there anything else to say about Brook Lopez? I don't think so. I think it was, we saw what he said at Summer League. If you haven't checked out my video on Dime Dropper on that, it's there. Yeah, Brook, he had great energy and excitement about him as well. And he talked about how he's seen the Clippers franchise become legitimate under Steve Ballmer, and it was amazing to hear that from someone who's been an all-star and accomplished a lot in his career. But yeah, I'm going to stick with the Bradley Beal quotes for now. Bradley Beal, he said, I'm excited about where I am now. And he said, after the year in Phoenix, I had a little scope done in Phoenix, literally right as soon as the year ended. Now I'm ready to rock. There was a little inflammation in my knee. So just note, he did have another procedure done on his knee, a little scope according to him, but it looks like he's good to go. So, as long as he's okay, it's worried me a little bit. And he also said more fitting, made more sense. Talking about the Clippers, coming to the Clippers, he said, felt more confident and comfortable about the role and situation I was going into. And that's one thing I think Ty Lue's done a good job of is, obviously the Westbrook thing didn't go his way because they kind of forced a new point guard onto him, the front office, because it was the front office that never really wanted Westbrook. But, as I talked about, guys like Reggie Jackson, guys like Patrick Beverly. Although Patrick Beverly was with Glenn, so Reggie Jackson actually played with under Glenn for a little bit too, but only half a year. But even Paul George, it seems like he speaks highly of Ty Lue, Kawhi Leonard. He has done a good job of being a real players coach. Nico Batum, I don't know how I didn't mention him. So it seems like everybody. The one guy that left the Clippers, actually, I was a little surprised because he kind of was a young player that was getting attention. And to be honest, he hasn't had more attention since, unless maybe we want to talk about these last playoffs. Landry Shamet. I was shocked that he left the Clippers, honestly. But hey, he wasn't excelling. Nobody was excelling in their role in that 2020 bubble. But anyway. So yeah, the Clippers are a place to be now. Anyway, Bradley Beal continues to say 100%. He was asked about how he felt. He was asked about how he felt about being potentially, having more defensive responsibility and maybe guarding the best point of attack defender in the starting lineup. And he said, 100%, 100%. I feel like I've had that at least in Phoenix the last couple of years too, like just being responsible for guarding, some of the best players in the league. And I'm hoping for that, man. Like, I'm willing to do that. And I'm hoping for that, man. Like, I'm willing to do that. We have a lot of dudes who can put the ball in the basket. So that ain't my job to do every single night. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's going to be other ways. There's other ways, and that's the beauty of it. Like, I sit here and I preach to my AAU kids about there being more than one way of impacting the game besides scoring. And I'm just preaching to myself right now, so I can showcase that there's other ways to impact the game outside of scoring. I can score the ball with the best of them, but I can also guard it too. And that's JVG. Been on my ass about that since we got here. So, yeah, that won't stop. So, hey, I love the way Brad's talking. I love the way he seems like he's all for the team, and he's not tripping on his points. And, maybe there's more to it behind the scenes with Phoenix that we didn't know about, and it comes to them not having much harmony in the locker room and maybe them not respecting Coach Budenholzer and Frank Vogel. You know what I mean? How much respect the coach gets, that's relevant. And then he talked about playing with point guards, and he said, but I'd be lying if I said I didn't have my best years of my career without elite point guards. The John Walls, the Russ, I've had some really good point guards, so James, CP, those guys like that. It's just another box I get to check, and I'm super ecstatic about it, man. I didn't know he said so much in some of those quotes. I just write down verbatim like the exact quotes. But hey, man, because you know what it is? I think it's not only that Beal gets open shots, obviously that's the obvious with great point guards, but when he's coming off screens, he's getting the ball right in his pocket. You know what I'm saying? They're hitting him right on time. Where he can get into his move, and someone like Beal, he can work quickly off the catch. Inside the arc, outside the arc. There's a real beauty to his game when it comes to scoring the basketball when he's got it going on. And it's my type of, game. It's just the only thing is he doesn't get to the paint enough. And to me, he was never a number one option on a good team. I don't know what it is. I think the playmaking just wasn't great enough. And, he did only score 30 points per game on like not great teams. One was an awful team and the other one was an 8th seed. But hey, we never really got to see in his prime Bradley Beal as, I guess the 1 year with Russ was the only time we got to see like him being the second best player on the team. And they definitely needed more defensive pieces around that squad to be better. But yeah, I think Bradley Beal as this third or fourth option at this stage of his career is a good role for him on a potential championship team. And this is what he said about Ty Lue. He said, I've had a relationship with him prior. He's accountable with everybody. Kawhi, James, it starts with those two. So for all the people that don't like Ty Lue, he says he's accountable with everybody. That's him that actually knows, people like that played for him and is actually playing for him now. So people are saying that Ty Lue doesn't hold his players accountable. I don't know. Doesn't seem like to be the facts. But yeah, talking about Chris Paul a little bit, he seemed excited, but it was mostly about, it's amazing to be here. And Lauren Rosen asked him if it's set in that he's back in that jersey, and he said, not really, but he's just, it's being with his family, being home and being able to go to his kids' games that sticks out for him. So I think he's over the moon. And then Ty Lue talked about getting Lopez, and he said, to keep Zoo fresher. I just hope he doesn't go too far in the not playing Zoo direction. And then he also said about John Collins, a versatile big man that can guard multiple positions, can play 4 and play backup 5 as well. If we want to go small ball 5, we can go with him, Nico, and Kawhi together. I like that. The thought of that. So much length, so much size and athleticism and versatility in that starting in that. I'm talking. But so much versatility there with those 3 guys. size-wise, being able to switch on multiple positions and multiple sizes. And Kawhi said about John Collins, said John can spread the defense out, guarded a lot for Utah Jazz the last few years, and athletic, can run and jump with the best of them on the floor. And he also said about Brook Lopez, 7-foot shooting, big. You need those in this league today. So it's basically consensus stuff. I mean, it's everybody saying the same things that I would tell you about these guys, but it's cool to hear our players actually say them. James Harden, though, said he worked a lot on his conditioning. He said that we had a lot of pieces that we were missing, filled a spot in every position. And he said, I've been in situations with certain teams where guys got individual agendas, whether it's contract years, trying to make a name for themselves. And he's saying that this team does not have that energy. And of course, John Collins mentioned, I haven't really had a chance to play with a high-level playmaker since such as CP, James, since Trey, when I left Trey in Atlanta. And he also mentioned that he's excited to learn from Kawhi defensively and is happy that he doesn't have to be guarded by him anymore. And one thing to think about with John Collins that's interesting is he goes from being like the most experienced player on his team, oldest, now he's like one of the youngest. So it's pretty funny. So he said it keeps him fresh and it keeps things interesting. So excited to have all these guys, and I was very pleased with their energy on Media Day. You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at DimeDropperPod. Subscribe to my own YouTube channel, Dime Dropper, for even more LA Clipper and LA sports and NBA content. And Locked On Clippers is free and available wherever you get your podcasts, including YouTube. Make sure you subscribe on the road to 8,000 subscribers. The age-old proverb continues, go Clippers.